Welcome, this is Jim, host of the Faith Influencer podcast, where we're going to dive into discussions on faith's role in everyday life, from navigating blended families to overcoming challenges. I'm a husband, a father, a Bible teacher, an advocate for applying faith to everyday life. So tune in as I share personal stories, valuable insights, and practical wisdom. Am I married to a narcissist? Welcome back. Jim Cunningham, Faith Influencer. A lot of times our subject's based on what people say in the comments. And one of the comments, well, let me take that back. It's not one of the comments, it's many of the comments of people who say, my husband or my wife is such a narcissist. Well, first of all, you probably don't oftentimes know what you mean by narcissist, because sometimes if you disagree with someone or someone's selfish or something like that, you call them a narcissist. But there really are people who are married to narcissists. So today's subject's going to deal with two things. One, are you married to a narcissist? And I'm going to give you some of the characteristics of a narcissist. And here's why I'm doing this, because remember, this is the Blended Family Podcast. Now, this is going to help in all areas of marriage, but especially in the blended family. Oftentimes, now let's just be honest, okay? Oftentimes when you're in a blended family, it's because maybe you had some issues that you needed to deal with. Maybe your spouse had issues. Probably both of you had issues. But when I see someone who's on their second, third, and on, I'm thinking there's some bigger, deeper issues going on there. Are you married to a narcissist? Or here's my next question. Are you the narcissist? Maybe you're not married to one. Maybe you are one. I want to give you some hope, because I want you to catch this first. A narcissist, that is a psychological disorder. It's not just someone who's selfish. We're all selfish at times. But a narcissism is literally a psychological disorder. But I want to tell you what to do about it if you're the narcissist. So in the very end, I'm going to give you the first step to overcoming narcissism. And it's a very difficult thing. At the same time, if you're married to a narcissist, I've been asked this question more than once. Someone said, I'm married to a true, genuine narcissist. What do I do? Do I just divorce them because it's a crazy life that I live and I can't handle it anymore? I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to suggest you get a divorce. I'm going to first tell you there are some things that maybe you should do, and there's some things that you need to stop doing. So all of this under the umbrella to help us in our marriages, help blended families. And are you the narcissist or are you married to a narcissist? Here we go. Here's a definition. Let's begin with this. A narcissist is someone who has an excessive interest or admiration for themselves. Someone who's just over the top in love with them. That's a narcissist. Someone who mainly cares about only what they want. It is a fragmented sense of self. It is this grandiose idea of who I am. That's a narcissist. You remember the narcissist who looked into their image into the pond, the whole thing from hundreds of years ago, which began the idea of narcissism. That's the person who wants to always look in the mirror because they are so taken by their own image. That's a narcissist. Are you that person or are you married to that person? If you're married to that person, we should stop right now and have prayer, because that person is difficult to live with. And I don't mean difficult in a little bit. I mean over the top difficult. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to explain narcissism. I'm going to explain what it's like to be married to a narcissist. I'm going to explain what they're trying to do, and you probably have no idea this is a part of their agenda, and you're playing right into it, and you're creating even a worse narcissist, and you don't know it. So let's lay it out. Are you ready? Here we go. First of all, a narcissist always needs constant validation. They need you to always validate everything they do. There is such a lack of confidence that they're asking you, do you like how I look? Do you like my hair? Do you like my clothes? Nothing wrong with that. And if I'm talking to a guy right here, you ought to compliment your wife anyways. But they're over the top with that. They're always needing validation. They're always wondering what other people think about them. Why? Because remember, the whole world's about them. It's about their image. It's about how they look. It's about their appearance. It's about how they come off. It's about what other people think about them. Not you, their spouse, not the kids, but them. That's a narcissist. And the problem is And here's where you play into it. Now remember, this is the faith influencer. This is a Christian umbrella that this podcast finds itself, right? And so as Christians, what do we always want to do? We always want to be nice. I literally had a man come to my office this morning, and he was a fruitcake. I mean, he was over the top weird. And you know what I was? Nice. Why was I nice? Well, because we Christians think we should always be nice. Well, do you know that when it comes to living with a narcissism, that's sometimes the worst thing you can do? Now, I know that sounds counterproductive or anti-Christian, but I'm telling you that when it comes to a narcissist, the idea that I'm going to be always nice is not what you want to be. But I'll explain. So the problem is you always want to be nice, and the tendency is to always give them constant validation. And you know what that does? That only feeds their narcissism. Doesn't help them at all. You see, I don't want to live with this narcissist. They're driving me crazy. I can't stand it. Well, quit feeding the beast. Quit giving them what they're asking for. Quit validating them. Quit thinking that you always have to be nice. Let's keep going. So what I'm suggesting to you is that there is kindness with boundaries. Now, did you hear what I said? There is kindness with boundaries. There is nothing in Christianity or living for the Lord or under the umbrella of faith that says that I must always be a pushover nice person. Not at all. Kindness, true kindness, has boundaries. Do you think Jesus in any way was sinfully unkind? Not at all. But yet he went into the temple and turned over the money, the tables, and whipped the money changers out of the temple. All of that. Kindness has boundaries. So if you're living with a narcissist, I want you to realize I can be kind and at the same time, boundaries. But the problem is that you think, all right, I'm going to help my spouse because this is a psychological disorder. So I'm going to be nice to them. I'm going to go along with them. I'm not going to get into fights with them because I want to genuinely help them. I love them and I want to help them. All right, lean in. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. A true narcissist, the psychological disorder of narcissism, is not looking for your help. They do not want your help. You think, I'm going to help them. They don't give a rip about you helping them. They don't want your help. They're not looking for your help. They're looking for something, but it's not your help. You know what they're looking for? They're seeking control. That's what a narcissism is. They don't want help. They want control. There's probably, in the world of psychological disorders, there's probably not a disorder that so more wants control and can manipulate in ways that your mind cannot even imagine to get control over you. And the problem is that you're stepping right into the trap every time. They're like a spider, and they've weaved a web, and you've gotten caught in it, and you don't even know it. You're in the midst of a spider web and don't even know it. They're not seeking for help. They're seeking for control. So let's keep going. Your empathy and your kindness trying to fix them only turns into codependency. Now, listen to what I'm saying. You're going to wrap your whole life around what they're trying to, around their narcissism, around everything being about them. You're going to begin to think before you do anything, how's it going to affect them? What are they going to think about it? Are they going to get mad if I do this? What's going to be their attitude? Are they going to quit talking to me if I do this? Everything is about them. Are you married to that person? Some of you right now saying, you're describing my husband, or you're describing my wife. Some of you, if you're honest, you're saying, ooh, that may be me. Remember, in the end, I'm going to help you. So it turns into codependency. If you're living your life based around your spouse's narcissism, then that's going to turn into codependency. And then here's what's going to happen. Your life is going to become tied to their issues. That's going to be your life. You're going to be at work and you're thinking about their issues. You're going to be sitting at home trying to watch a TV show and you're thinking about their issues. You're going to be awake at night, not sleeping, because their issues are your issues. You know what that is? Codependency. So that's what happens when you're married to a narcissist, is that you fall into their trap and you become codependent, and their issues become your issues and their burden becomes your burden. And that's what they want, because they want, remember, control. They want control. They don't want help. They want control. So here's why it's so difficult to live with a narcissist. And many of you right now are getting help with this. And what I'm about to say, many of you right now are gonna literally shed some tears because you have not been able to verbalize what I'm about to verbalize for you, even though you felt it. Here's what happens when you're married to a true narcissist. In that relationship, you disappear. That's what happens when you're married to a narcissist. If you fall into the trap in that relationship, you literally disappear and they dominate. That's the marriage that many of you are in if you're married to a narcissist. You don't even matter. You feel that. It's all about them. Maybe sometimes they can pretend that they care about what you think. They don't. Maybe they're going to pretend something they don't care. Because narcissism isn't about that. Narcissism is about control, and it's about dominating. And in a relationship like that, you're not a part of that relationship other than your codependency. You literally disappear in that relationship. And you feel that. So what do you do? Here's what you do. You refuse to play their game. That's what you do. You refuse to play the game. You see, what I said in the beginning, I said for a reason that some of you think it's just Christian to be nice all the time, and it's not. You refuse to play their game. What you have to do in a relationship like that is you have to create structure and you have to create consequences. Adults can have consequences. You create structure and you create consequences. I promise you that a true narcissist with the disorder of narcissism, they don't want structure and they don't want consequences. So how hard is it for you to realize that your narcissistic spouse doesn't need your softness? Your narcissistic spouse doesn't need your kindness. They don't need your constant validation. Your narcissistic spouse, they need your strength. That's what they need. They don't need your kindness and your niceness. They need your strength. It's time for you. I don't care if you're a man or if you're a woman. It's time for you to step up and quit falling into this trap. Married to a narcissism requires that you must have a backbone yourself. You must have some strength yourself. Don't disappear. So when you do that and you take a stand and you're not going to go along with that, you're not always going to fall into that trap, don't expect that the narcissistic spouse is going to accept that because they're not. Why? Because their power and their control is being threatened when you quit just following along, being nice, and you stand up and have structure, consequences, and a backbone. When you do that, you've threatened their world. So don't expect a good reaction from them once you take a stand in that relationship. And their reaction may be harsh. And when it is, you know what I see? All the time. Drives me crazy. You know what happens? They're going to react to you harshly. And then you're going to revert right back to where you were before because you weren't ready for this harsh reaction from your narcissistic spouse. And you're going to go right back into this whole kindness routine and this whole compassion routine over this person who doesn't deserve it. But I want you to listen to me. So please lean in just for a minute. Listen to what I'm saying. Your compassion, listen, is not keeping the peace. How do I get that in your head? Your compassion is not keeping the peace. It's only feeding the beast. You hear that? Your compassion is not keeping the peace. It's only feeding the beast. That's how it is with a narcissistic person. So your marriage isn't working. Your relationship's not working. You've disappeared. This isn't the life you are after. You're married to this narcissistic person. What do I do? Now you know. I'm not just going to follow along. I'm not just going to be nice. I'm going to have a backbone. I'm going to have some structure, all of those things. So, and don't turn into a victim. Don't become that person. You may be somewhat of a victim, but don't turn into this victim person. Don't want you to take that route. Don't get this victim mentality because then you're going to become somewhat like they are. Don't be in denial. Don't be in denial who you're married to. And I'm also going to say, and I'm not trying to shame you, but I'm also going to say to you, they didn't just become a narcissist. They were a narcissist when you were dating them. They were a narcissist when you married them. And so don't be surprised that you're living with a full-fledged narcissist. Now, it is true that a narcissist can cover up some of their tendencies, maybe while you're dating, that you didn't see. Well, you should have seen some of it. As a matter of fact, I don't believe that at all. I know that if you're married to a narcissist, even though they acted a little different during the dating stage, I promise you, I would bet anything that you saw signs and tendencies. You just overlooked them. I mean, that's what people do. That's why they marry the wrong person, because they have characteristics that they really don't like, but they just are in denial. So you married a narcissist. You saw the red flags. Maybe you didn't have the terminology, narcissism, but you saw the red flags, and now you're in this situation that you wish that you weren't in. So don't be in denial. Don't play the victim. So what do? Well, let me end it with this. There's some of you listening, and you're feeling somewhat convicted and guilty because I'm describing maybe you. So I'm going to give you the first step, and I'm going to give it to you from a Bible story. And this is the first step. This is step number one. There are lots of other steps, and it's not the intention of this podcast to get into all of those steps. It's just to call attention to what's going on in many marriages, okay? But I'm going to give you the first step. I'm going to give it to you from a Bible story. So listen to what happened. You remember this Bible story? It's actually in the book of Mark, and it's the story of when Jesus healed the blind man. So I want to teach you something here about this. Watch what happens, because it's the only time it's in the Bible. So here's this blind man, and Jesus goes to this blind man, and this crowd is pressing all around this blind man. The Bible says that Jesus took this blind man by the head, and he took him away from the crowd. Now, everything Jesus did, I'm going to suggest he did it with intention. There was too much distraction going on there. Sometimes there's too much distraction for us to really get along and deal with some things that we need to deal with. There was some distraction, so he pulled him out of the distraction. Do you remember when some translations say that Jesus spit in his eyes? But he did something that's only happened here, never happened again in Scripture, no other miracle, anything. Jesus asked the man, "Can you see? What do you see?" Well, one, never has Jesus in a miracle ever asked someone, did it work? And in this case, do you remember what the man said? Okay, I'm helping you with the first step. Do you remember what the man said? This is what the man said. The man said, "Well, I see what looks like trees." You remember that? It's like there's trees walking around. You know what that man needed? A second touch. Sometimes we need a second touch. So Jesus, again, put his hands on him, and then the man could see. So what's my point? When Jesus asked the man the first time, "Can you see?" The man could have said, "Oh yeah, thank you. I can see. I can see fine. Everything's good." No, that's what a lot of you are doing. It's that denial of where you really are. So that man didn't deny where he really was. He said, "No, honestly, I really can't see. I still can't see." So here's what I want you to catch, and this is the piece that means everything to what we've been talking about. Sometimes you have to own where you are in order to disown where you are. I'm being quiet for a moment so you can think about that. Sometimes you have to own where you really are so that you can finally disown where you are. Does that make sense? Sometimes you have to be honest about where you are. If you're that narcissistic person, be honest about it. Be like the blind man, this is where I am. I'm really not seeing. You have to own where you are. You say, "I want to walk. I don't want to be this person." That is, you're telling me you want to disown where you are. You want to walk. You don't want to be that anymore. Well, you can't disown where you are until you own where you are. So let's be honest. Take step number one. I have the tendencies of a narcissist.
I've made everything about me, and I see it, and it's so wrong, and I've made life miserable. That's where I am. That's the first step. Again, it's not our intention to take it from here. You go from there and continue to get help, but own where you are. I'm trying to help marriages heal. That's what I'm trying to do. Thank you for joining Faith Influencer. This is Jim Cunningham. Look forward to next time.